Meeting is being recorded, so. We're up and running. All right, let's call it to order. Roll call, Kate, do you have, I see Dan's online, anyone besides Dan? On the Zoom? Scott?
No.
Just. Okay. City,
I got it.
okay. All right, first order of business, approval of the March minutes. Okay, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Minutes are approved. All right, we have Dave. Dave, any visitor comments?
Yeah, really, thanks for having me, really quick. First of all, Ben did a really good job last week at the special city council for budget session with all the board and commissions. Short and sweet, then it was great, so he did a good job. This is from a resident standpoint, a belated congratulations on the passage of Prop W. As most of you know, I was a strong advocate for the indoor pool, which is just on hold, and I hope it's gonna happen a few years down the road. But I will say, I went to the Aquatic Center presentation by Scott and Westport Pools of all of the design work that they've done. It was all around a series of tables. And I told Marie, I was just blown away. I mean, it was beyond my expectation. And the reason is because my whole career was spent creating new products, developing and nationally introducing new products. So I like new. And what bothered me the most about replacement option was that we're just gonna replace what we have and there's just gonna be nothing new. And I walked in there and there's a ton of new exciting stuff. The three slides are very cool. The middle slide is this new stand-up slide, which I have never seen anywhere. I think it'll be the first in St. Louis to have it. I think somebody in Kansas City may have one, but we'll be the first in St. Louis to have it. This ninja thing, I think kids are gonna go ape shit over. The diving well, which I was asked, well, why are you moving the diving well from the west side of the pool to the east side of the pool? That's because when you have swim meets, people in the stands were looking into the sun, and they're right, and my kids swam their ways for years, and that's exactly what you do. You're looking into the sun, and this way, the fans can watch a meet without staring into the sun. That's brilliant. But the biggest thing as it relates to the indoor pool was this Dynadome enclosure, whatever, it opens, it closes. It is the coolest thing that could eventually go over the indoor pool. And from my standpoint, as much as I wanted the indoor pool now, it's worth the wait. I mean, this thing is really, really cool, and I hope it happens, because I think it'll just be.
What, why
Pardon me?
do you say it's cool?
Well, number one, it's really cool. It's innovative looking. It's like futuristic looking to me. But it opens up, Tracy. It's not, and the whole thing is like slowly it opens up and it closes. I mean, it's just I mean, you have to see, it's really cool. And I was just blown away by it and really impressed. The only feedback that I got from adults on the Aquatic Center stuff was that the adults wish that the lazy river was longer and wider. Because evidently it's a very popular attraction for adults. And like Kirkwood has one when you get on inner tubes, but you can go around that thing for hours evidently. And I think that's what the parents wanted. So it's something to think about if there's any changes to it. I'm for Jerry Welch being named on the sculpture garden. I think that's a really good thing. It'll make her and a lot of us in the city really happy. And then finally, you know, the city has started this new comprehensive plan thing where they're gonna look, you know, the growth and development of the city over the next 20 years. And I hope Parks and Recreation beyond Prop W is a big part of that, and I think it should be. But what's interesting, I took a walk for the first time down the Deer Creek Greenway in Brentwood. And if you haven't seen the park over there, that's mind blowing, because they have stuff in there that I have never seen. And it's really fun, and it was jammed packed. And they had water stuff and this, I mean, it was just the coolest thing. And in fact, they even had this rainwater big thing feeding into a little pond, a little lake for the kids. It's not a swimming pool, it's like an outside lake. And it's like muddy water, the kids are playing and stuff. I mean, it's just really, really fun. They really thought through it, and I just think it says there's so much potential for, I think, our parks and recreation beyond Prop W. If we're looking in the next 20 years, I think there's a lot more to go, so that's all I want to say. You guys are doing a great job, and this swimming pool is gonna be awesome. It's gonna be totally awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did recently receive the same, two people had the same comment about the lazy river. Knowing that it's extra lifeguards for extra feet or extra turns, but just a plug for if we could get an extra 8 feet and that would only cost 1 lifeguard or whatever the cutoff is, that does seem like a popular piece of feedback. Right. Then on to old business, Prop W, election results and things.
The election went well. No, really. That's really simplified, but really, thanks. You know, the election was tight. There were, you know, the turnout wasn't super heavy and on an April election with not much else on the ballot. That's not true. There was charter amendments to some on the ballot. There were just. There's a lot of. There was, and there was 3 council members with 3 positions, so, but yes, Prop W passing was a huge relief for me for about 12 seconds until I realized how much more work it's gonna be for the next 2 years. So I just really want to thank you all for the time and effort and thoughtfulness you put into giving input on the project list and giving input, receiving input from your friends and neighbors and family about the whole election process and how that all went down with how we give information out, how we name things and how we don't. It was very informative, and so I just appreciate the feedback and stuff. So I'm looking forward to continuing to get more feedback farther down the agenda, but as we move forward in the process with actually building what you all have generously supported financially over the next several years, so.
Well, assuming most comments are gonna get covered in 60. I think we can move on to new business. Second request for the renaming of the sculpture park.
So in the packets I sent you all, you got and there's a couple on the table there, if anyone needs another copy. The Arts Commission submitted another formal request, a second formal request to the council to rename the sculpture park as the Jerry Welch Sculpture Garden. Council has asked you all to weigh in on that, provide a recommendation again to them. If you remember a little back history on it, in January of 2003, the first request came from the Arts Commission to you all, and you all did a bunch of discussion around it and ended up make sure I get the terminology right. Commission voted to wait until 4 years had passed from her last term of office and to wait until April 2026 to make a recommendation for renaming. And that was the motion that passed. Subsequent months, we didn't really have a naming policy, then you all worked on a naming policy over the next several months to come up with the new policy that you recommended to council, which then council adopted in November of 2023. So with all that history, the request is back before you all again, and so I'd like for you all to have the opportunity to discuss the naming policy, review it again if you need to, and then discuss the request and hopefully make a motion and vote on a recommendation that will be forwarded up to the city council again.
So, quick question, since we previously decided to table it until 2026, do we need to rescind that, or it would just be,
That could be your recommendation again, if that's what you choose.
if that's
yes.
what we want to do, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't, I guess you don't necessarily need a full vote. If that is the commission's recommendation that we've already looked at this, we already voted on it, did thoughtful discussions. We're still not opposed to it at that time, but at this time, naming policy says this and that, and that's what we've already done. If that's what you would like to do, I think that's,
Are you all familiar with our boards, our new boards and commissions process when their requests come forward? I think this ties into it. The timing is a little funky, but because boards and commissions are doing so many different things and we were getting requests bubble up, we developed a format. Should have asked you to provide some of those. All that to say is that this coming back to you, that I'm not reading this as council asking you all to do something one way or another. The new process is that when requests come in, they will go to the commission that's impacted, ask for input, and then come back. So I'm just gonna put that out there on the table.
I don't personally don't see any reason to change our previous position in the matter.
I'm not saying this is my position, but I have heard from a few folks, and especially from the Arts Council, that, timing is of the essence. It'd be nice to do it while, Jerry's still around, or former Mayor Welch. So I think that's the only other argument, not even saying that I'm for it, but I don't know if there are any other thoughts for why we would go against our own, I guess, timing recommendation.
I'm struggling to remember why 2026 gives us the 5 years since she left, is that?
4 years.
4 years, sorry. And I don't remember our discussion as to why the 4 years just gives it a gravitas that doing it immediately doesn't, or do you guys remember how we discussed?
Yeah, I think it was basically my feelings on it were that it just, when it's so close to somebody leaving, it sometimes can feel like it's a favor from an existing set of, sometimes you like a little bit of time for maybe some new people to come in, just to stand back from something and make sure that enough time is just to absorb. That was my feeling on it. I think 4 years just kind of came out of group discussion and.
How many of us were put on this body by Jerry? So, right?
I was just gonna ask, the 4-year thing that we made as a recommendation, was that adopted in the policy?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if that was just what we came up with.
Here's the.
It's,
Elected officials and
Okay.
yourself.
Got it. Thank you.
I agree with Mike. I think that it's reasonable and we stick with the 4 years that we came up with. And there's no reason not to think it wouldn't happen in that time frame.
Is there any, based on the feedback from the Arts Commission, is there any reason to think that she will not be here in 2 years?
just tomorrow is always uncertain, I think was the sentiment, and yeah, I think that was the main argument.
Are you being online?
That's my question.
That could
Right.
be one, she could, I don't know, decide to move to California, I don't know exactly how they meant it, but that seemed like the sentiment.
But she's not like battling terminal cancer.
No, I mean, not to.
That's what I was trying to.
Right, that's right. Yeah, like her.
Yeah,
Actuarially, it doesn't seem like it's a huge risk. She'll be here in 2 years. I mean, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, and if she did move, would they still want to name it? Her?
If you're deserving today, you'd still be deserving in 2 years is
Yeah.
kind of.
I think,
Exactly.
I would think so, so I wouldn't see what a big rush it was. but. Unless it's like they're wanting to do the plaque right now for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, I read their letter and from what I can gather, they put thought into why they nominated. And recommend that we name it that, and again, this is, my feeling on the matter doesn't go to whether or not. Former Mayor Welsh deserves to be the park named after her. I just had this feeling of waiting and we came up with a policy to wait. I just don't see that I've been given a reason why we should bypass that policy in this particular circumstance.
I feel like we made it, why make it if we're not gonna go with
Here's
it?
the-
Right.
Not that I have a problem with them naming it if they really are wanting to, and it, but I don't know, I feel like, why did you do it if they're just gonna let whatever. I do think it is a good thing to wait a little bit rather than like naming someone when they're in office, like you were saying, it seems like it might be because they're in office at the time and.
So if there's no other strong arguments for doing it right now, do we wanna make a motion to keep it in 2026?
I would second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Bye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All in favor? So wait the 2 years.
Table it back until 2026.
Okay, next up, July 4th parade judges.
Yeah, so last year, several of you, or a couple of you guys were judges. I'm looking for judges again this year. So some of you said last year that you'd be interested in doing it this year, but you had other previous commitments and whatnot. So the floor is open if anybody would like. I need 3 judges. If anybody would like, you get first choice or my first asks. So basically, it's parade's at 10 o'clock. So you need to be there by about 9. We'll have a vehicle for you, or you can provide your own if you've got a. Convertible Corvette, you wanna ride in and bring your own, that's fine too. If not, we'll get you a vehicle and we'll get you from the start of the parade down to Ruby Park over here, where you'll sit and judge, and we'll have a judging sheet. 6 or 8 categories to judge and say who's the first and second place.
I'll say to you guys, it's really fun.
Really fun.
Yeah, we had a really, my fellow judges made it fun.
I agree, it's a lot of fun. If you guys didn't do it last year, you should give it a try.
Yeah.
I think every 5 feet, somebody is waving and yelling at Dan
Yeah.
now. King of the parade.
You got one taker,
I'll
anybody else?
volunteer. I didn't last year because my kids wanted me to go, but they're going. So they'll.
Mailing them.
Yeah, I thought they would.
Yeah.
That's-
They abstain from judging that one, you know.
Okay, well, I'll take 2 and we'll find this a third.
And
Appreciate
so do
you.
we need that in front of the high school?
Yeah, I'll send you more information. So yeah, right there in front of high school, you'll be one of the first cars. You're actually closer to the library. Yeah, that way you can get out. Good view, something like that. So really, you don't judge the fire department, the color guard. Just do one other thing in front of you and then judges your next, so.
I'm not speaking for my fellow judges last year, but if you draw a complete blank, hit us up, because I would do it, but I feel like other people should do it first.
I'm happy to do it, I just have to check
Sure.
my schedule.
Good check.
Yeah,
And Scott, the parade is open for parade entries, applications now, is that right?
It is jumping ahead on me, Dave.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, yes, parade applications are open right now, it's online. It's for any groups that want to get in, it's just Webster Groves mo.gov/parade will take you directly to the online registration form, which is open through the last day of the US Open, which is also Father's Day, which is also my wife's birthday, which is a lot of things happening there with me napping and her wanting me to do things for her birthday. June 16th, I know, right? I think she's
So
getting.
you'll follow this every year.
No, it's every like third. That's right. So, And I don't wanna do anything, but, moving on. June 16th is the registration deadline for the parade.
And is there an overall theme?
Independence.
Not appropriate, okay. Thanks.
Right, water park design and public input.
So we hosted 2 meetings last couple weeks, had the in-person open house that several of y'all came to, and then last week we did a Zoom/Facebook Live event, which is recorded and still on the Parks and Rec Facebook page, and anybody can go watch. It's just under an hour, thrillingness of me talking a lot. But mostly both of them involved, when you came in tonight, you probably saw the display boards that are out there. We had those up in the open house and we had a couple videos playing. And then we showed the same thing in the Zoom Facebook Live, although when I rewatch it, there's no sound on the videos. Facebook was cutting it out for some reason, so, and the sound was, thrilling music in the background, so different than that. So I encourage you, if you haven't seen that yet, give it a view. At the end of that presentation, there's a survey. This is a quick little 3-question survey. What do you like? What didn't you like? What else would you like to see? And there's a QR tag on there, and that survey is open through next Wednesday, the 29th. So we're accepting input on that from anybody that came to the meetings or watched the videos. Showed a lot of good stuff on there. We're still in the design process, so if you've seen the social comments or people are asking, what about, doesn't look like there's enough shade. There's only 12 chairs on the deck, things of that nature. We're still designing, so we're not quite down to the nitty-gritty details yet. We're getting the big ticket items, the slides and where the pools are at and the filtration stuff first, and then we'll continue to be refining it. We'll probably be doing design, quite frankly, doing some of this stuff into the fall, even after construction starts, on some of the final pieces of, what's the pool furniture gonna look like and things like that, before we get down to those final nitty-gritty details, but, love your input if you have anything. I heard lazy rivers, we heard shade structures, we've heard some questions about moving the playground feature from the kiddie pool into the middle pool, and other things like that. So I can answer questions if you have questions, or I'd love to hear feedback if you have feedback.
Has anybody watched the video? Just curious, we had good representation. I'm trying to think how many people were on, can't recall, but we got several questions, because we did a question and answer period. And I haven't checked the numbers since last week, but as of last week, there were like 1,300 full views. So people are watching, so I suspect that's increased since then. But we are getting quite a few comments, I just wanted to throw that out there. Would really like to know, I'm probably skipping ahead a little bit, but how much input do you guys want? Because we would love to have your input as we get further down into design, and we can't, timelines are important. I mean, as we start talking about some of the nitty gritty, do you want to have representatives that are there? And so throw this back to Scott, but we don't want to do this in the vacuum, which is why we have been given input, as we promised we would do and are doing. So I was pleased to see the 1,300 views. Lots of folks are doing the QR code. But it's hard to know if we're capturing all the voices.
Personally, there's not too much. I'd rather be involved as much as humanly possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna-
Same.
I'm a project nerd, so I'm drawings and stuff like that, yeah.
And I really like your idea about ordering things from your phone. Just because it is where the future is going with stuff. I think that is definitely thing that would make the line.
Yeah.
Make it so nobody has to stand in a long line and they just go when it's ready, and just thought that was a great idea.
It's also, because we're still in design, and I know the indoor pool has been sort of tabled into the future, even though it will be enabled. I would love to know if there's, like, the nerd in me would love to see the actual data on revenue for the indoor pool and see if there's any numbers that we could pull in. I just had a conversation yet again with someone who's spending $30 for a 30-minute swimming lesson at one of the little pop-up things for her kids and per kid. And I just wonder if, that could be a potential revenue generator for us. And, if we brought in swim teams from other places besides Webster and I just wonder what those numbers are like, if they're fluid or they're really set, if we did a really secure deep dive initially, or if we could have a committee or some of us continue to look at those numbers. Even if we're 4 years down the road, I think if we're constantly looking at what they are, I think it would be helpful.
Well, I think that's right. It's all kind of a parallel track to see how we move forward with the indoor pool. And I'll say how rather than when, and of course it's council kind of decision on how we move forward, but we will need that data.
Yeah.
I am confident in the deep dive that was done, not only by the consultants, but by, Scott and us. We spent a lot of time on it. It wasn't an easy decision to say, no, we're not good, because we heard loud and clear from the community and we're still hearing from the community. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll still hear.
absolutely. So, I'm solid in the numbers and that it was not affordable at this point and that it was a loss leader, if you will, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep looking at it.
This is mostly because of the operating revenue going
Absolutely.
forward. Okay.
Operating revenue, and then Scott doesn't sure about us to jump in, but what I wanted to say, so yes, we can talk about the detractors of why we couldn't this time, but factors change. And, there are pools closing around the region for many reasons, because it is hard to operate.
Yeah.
So are we gonna be able to stay sustainable, excuse me? And the other real challenge, which you all know, are lifeguards. And that's, so and with the lazy river conversation as well, and I would love to be able to say, let's make it bigger, it'll just take one more lifeguard, maybe 2 lifeguards, and I'm not saying that it won't, but those are cost, and so will we be 2 years down the road, and not even cost, it's the staffing. If 2 years down the road, are we gonna have to close the lazy river and not have it open because we don't have lifeguards? How are we figuring those things out?
The data is out there, it's on the website, the master plan. That being said, it's a 100-page document, so finding it, I can point you in the right direction on what page it is. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can forward that information to you. So there was, towards the end, there's about 5 or 6 pages that have kind of the operating expenses for the indoor well, for all the different options, and the indoor was one of the options on that plan, and it lists out all the different expenses and all the different revenue streams to come in, and how they got to those numbers.
Because I think you said it really well, with like a parallel track or whatever, if you get to the point where people are actively looking at a go, no go down the road, even if I'm not on this board anymore, I would love to be involved in that. Just because the other thing too is, I was thinking about this, you get into some heavy marketing, which could change those numbers. If you really marketed to people who swim, as especially older adults swim a lot for recreation, but may not know.
Yeah.
That it's a possibility. So I don't know, I'd be really interested in looking at, I'll do a deep dive and look at the numbers, and would be happy to be involved with that.
Yeah, those numbers are always, they are a bit of a best guess, because it's like, until you build it, you don't know how many memberships you'll sell. You don't know how many birthday parties will get booked or how many swim lessons will happen. And, they did the consultants, that's what they do for a living. They build these pools nationwide and they design them, and then they also master plan them for them nationwide. And so they've got a in-depth, 168 point software system that factors all that stuff in from all the different projects that they work on. Once they open up and once they become active, then they capture that data over the next couple of years to kind of form what those numbers are, as well as they look individually at the region that you're building in, because obviously, San Francisco's got different pricing than St. Louis than Atlanta does. So they captured all that data from the region, what other municipality pools are selling membership costs at, and selling swim lessons and lap lane rentals and all that stuff also. That's how those numbers were formulated and captured, but till you build it, I don't really know, you know, it's kind of one of those things that. You know, it is a best guess, but that's kind of what most budgets are, when you develop a budget and you put it out there, that's your best guess informed on previous history and what you think the future will bring in. But until you actually go live it that year,
Maybe we kind of know from what you looked at pools, other indoor pools in the area, that there isn't one of them that actually makes money. Do they even come close to breaking even on their costs?
from my understanding, there's not an indoor pool in the country that makes money. Municipal full-on pool that actually turns a profit. I'm not sure how the smaller little fishes and those types of places actually turn a profit. That's not my business, so I don't know their ins and outs there. Every city budgets differently, and so they account for different things differently, and so it's hard to say, but none of them in the region that I've talked with, all my friends and colleagues, none of them are breaking even or really close. On average, most rec centers like this, kind of 80% is the gold standard. So if you bring in 80% of your revenue, then the city funds the other 20% type of option. That's kind of the gold standard. Now there's certain cities that are 50%, and there's cities that are 103%, and it makes it in between there. And even us, you know, if you break us down individually, ice rink makes 220% of its, you know, expenses and revenue, but the fitness center, you know, breaks even, pool almost breaks even. So, but even on ours, we look better today than we did 3 years ago, because we took all the utilities out of my budget here and we centralized them in City Hall. So we pull out $80,000 to $90,000 worth of utilities, make my budget look a heck of a lot better. It makes finance budgets so bad for work.
I remind Scott of that often, it's like, I'm making my dollars, like.
I'm at 98%, and I always put that caveat out there.
And the money is important, and it's a tough conversation, because we're not in the business, the city is not in the business to do this to make money. It's just that we have to also look at how that happens. It is a balance, because it's not my expectation. And I heard a council person say that it's our expectation that Parks and Rec is 100% solid, and that there isn't any subsidy, if you will, for lack of a better word. It just has been upside down for quite some time, and it is starting to come back. It's doing great. Scott and his crew, they're really doing solid work, and people are just starting to come back to fitness and other things, but it's still pretty upside down. So it's hard to factor that. Yes, please.
Since we are looking at it so much as CapEx versus OpEx, have we dug any further, and if we used a different, more expensive filtration system that would lower OpEx, or if we built it a little bit of a different way that would lower OpEx?
So the filtration system, we're basically putting in top of the line stuff, and it's sustainable and energy efficient, and gonna provide fantastic water quality that we can get really for the money that, not even for the money we're spending, that we can get. I mean, it's the one that I have researched and would like to have, and happened to be the one that Westport also said, this is the one you should go with us. Yes. So, yeah, I don't know that there's a whole bunch of operating savings to be found there. There's the potential for a couple things if we can you gotta heat the water, which is one of the big expenses. So there's the potential that if we could figure out a way to capture the waste heat off of the ice rink when you're removing heat off of the water that makes the ice, can you then capture that heat and pump it back into the pool water to heat the pool water? There's some possibilities for some things like that. But sometimes doing that, the engineering gets more expensive, and potential for if one of them goes down, you lose both of them type things, then you would actually see an operating savings. But it's something that we're looking at. We're talking with our HVAC and our engineer about doing some stuff like that. But
Does the master plan have a breakdown of labor is the driving thing versus
Labor is always-
and everything else is the?
labor's kind of always the driving thing. 75+% of all the city's budget in any department is labor. So staffing the lifeguards out there, staff likely a full-time person. If we have an indoor aquatics, we have year-round aquatics. Right now, we contract out those services. We're probably gonna need someone to not contract that out and bring a full-time person in-house to train those lifeguards and run those programs and rent that facility, so that's your biggest expense almost. I mean, yes, heating and HVAC and stuff certainly costs, but
Sorry, last question for the input that you're wanting, are there certain things that we just know are staying as is or we're tabling, so indoor pool obvious, and then like the footprint of the pool has to stay the same and everything else is kind of up for debate, or what are the guidelines?
I mean, we'd like to hear all the input that anybody would have. Yes, the footprint is pretty tight, it's hemmed in, there's not a whole lot of room to grow. We pushed it out to the west a bit, but you know, you can't go south because we've got the tennis courts that were $1 million project, they're sitting on a portion of it, and then you got this building that's on the east and north. So there's just not a whole lot of extra room to go. As it's designed right now, there's actually quite a bit more water than in the current pool, so the bather load is actually going up pretty heavily. The amount of people that we could actually service in there, and we get a lot of that, you know, like the slide tower is not dumping into the water. If you look at the current pool right now, half of the middle pool is not swimming water, it's safety zones for the slides. So when you take the slides and put them elsewhere, then all that opens up to playable, open, free swim water, where you can throw, you know, 60 more kids in there. 60 might be a stretch, 40 more kids in there, or whatever. So it is quite a bit more open water. The comp pool has the extra bump out, where the Ninja, of course, is gonna go. It has the in-water bench seating in there, so you can watch your friends and buddies do the Ninja, or we can use that for swim lesson type of stuff. Not having the spray ground separate, and moving those features into the pool, but moving the playground feature out of the toddler pool and onto basically the beach entry of the middle pool, then opens up a lot more open play space in the toddler pool. There's some spray features and play features in there as well, just not the big playground, so there's a lot more space for the littles to toddle around and play with their buckets and such, so. Yeah, I think while there's not a whole lot more land space, I do think we're getting quite a bit more usability out of the space that's there.
So if the play feature is moving to the middle pool, is it also upgrading so that it's capable for older kids?
It is,
Okay.
so it's designed like a lot of the small land-based playgrounds are. You know, typically your playgrounds are either, you know, 2 to 5 or 5 to 12 or 2 to 12. You know, in a big playground, you have both of those things. In a smaller park, you have that one playground that's got features from 2 to 12. And so the structure right now is designed to be able to hit all those categories. 12-year-olds probably aren't gonna play on it very much because it's not gonna be fun enough for them really, but you got one side that comes down, like there's a little slide that dumps out and it comes out into no water. It'll be on, you know, a swishy mat that you land on, and then the other side will come out into a slide that comes into, I forgot what it is, 8 or 12 inches of water, so that's kind of the older slide area and then the younger slide area, but yeah, certainly siblings can play with each other on there. You know, there's features sized height wise and spray wise appropriately for both spaces, what they use.
Scott, I have a question about how the school district currently spends money, probably, I'm guessing, to have indoor swim space at Webster University, and how that translates if there's a indoor facility for the city of Webster, will they have to pay for that? Or would they not have to pay for that because they're part of the community?
That, none of that has been decided yet. We certainly invited all the schools to participate in the master planning process and asked them if they wanted to be a part of this project and potentially help fund any of it. And none of them jumped up and down with their checkbook in hand to help fund it. I would imagine that, if we built an indoor pool, it would be much like the tennis courts or the ball fields that, we would rent them to the school district. The tennis courts, we signed an agreement with Webster High, Webster U, and Narix Hall, all actually helped fund the capital project of that tennis courts. And then for that capital funding, they get X amount of hours for leagues and tournament play and practices. And then outside of those designated hours, then they would have to rent it. So like in the summertime is supposed to be reserved for public usage. If one of the schools wants to have a summer camp or something, then they rent those courts. So I imagine it would be some sort of hybrid mix of that. Assuming if they did want to do CapEx, then it would likely just be a rental. It would be $10 an hour per lap lane or whatever it would be, which would be similar to what they're paying at other pools.
And I guess the other part of that, and I know we're trying to be financially responsible, but sometimes you have to look outside of that, and the idea that our high school team has to go and practice at 6 a.m. at Webster University before school because there's not ideal lap lanes available after school because they're competing with the other high schools and the university itself next door. So I don't know, there's just a lot to consider when it comes to lap time and usage and opportunities for us to make money with an indoor facility.
Yeah, anytime we have multiple user groups, it's always a struggle to try to make everybody happy. To have hours that are open for the public to use, have hours that are open for teams to use, have hours that are open for programs for swimming lessons and stuff. So programming that, there's only so much time in a day, and everybody wants 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock is the prime time hour. So finding weekdays and weekends, it's Saturday morning, 8 to noon is kind of the prime time hour. So finding a good mix of that for everybody is always a tough deal.
I'm thrilled to hear that you think there will be interest, because there just wasn't when we went knocking on doors, so that's it's good
Well,
to hear that there's potential.
I think that the high school team was very interested, and they were also interested in having opportunity for different meets throughout the summer that attract people from outside of Webster. So yeah, there's definitely opportunity.
Excellent.
Why, I noticed we don't have I think it's on our roster, a school board representative, but I haven't seen a school board representative in this commission for maybe 3 months, 4 months?
I think it's longer.
Probably.
It's longer than that. It was this.
Probably over
a year.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there something we can do to kind of say, hey, school board, you're not attending this and you should be?
Yeah.
I'm happy to. I don't know that it's gonna get you an attendee, but I can do it.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And their representative gets all the same emails that you all do. They're on the same list, so they get all the meeting invites and backup notice and
Is there a
Zoom invites.
that they said this is your guy or?
Yeah, Dr. Grace Lee is is who they forwarded to us when David rotated off the school.
And then also I noticed now for pool rentals, you need a security guard to staff it. Is that optional? And
That is not optional. So for after hours rentals, you do require a uniformed police officer to be present at the after hours rental, which we do for a lot of our other events inside here. At the ice rink, oftentimes they need rentals and in meeting rooms, depending on the size and number of the event, you have to have an officer present. That's just the tamp down any things that shouldn't be happening while you're at a public facility.
Just feels a little painful for someone hosting a 5-year-old birthday party there with nothing but 5-year-olds and needing a police officer to staff it, but. If that's the rule, that's the rule.
Maybe elaborate on it at all, but we
Just it sounds like a story.
Just-
There's a couple stories
There-
last summer.
some not great stories, so. Both for attendee safety and to keep peace with neighbors, we unfortunately gotta have a babysitter.
And it wasn't just our pool last summer, but pools across the region had a lot of, everybody's not always honest when they rent facilities. You know, they say it's a 5-year-old birthday party, and then it shows up that there's not a single 5-year-old there. It's a bunch of 25-year-olds. And then we roll in a DJ, and then we, you know, invite our closest 1,000 friends. And that's a tough position to put, you know, 18, 19-year-old lifeguards into to manage that. So we need some adult presence and adult presence in uniform to help manage those expectations. But yes, I do realize that the extra dollars is might not have as many rentals this year on a couple of those.
Yeah.
And we do realize that, you know, several of them are 3rd grade back to school parties and things like that that we've historically hosted, and those folks have asked those questions, so.
Yeah.
But, yeah, for the safety of everybody coming and the staff that's working and the neighborhood at large, that's what's gonna happen.
At what point is this required? When you're renting the whole facility?
If you're renting an after hours pool rental, yeah.
Any after hours and that,
Yeah.
okay.
So we'll rent the pools individually, so you don't have to rent the entire structure. You can rent, you know, just a lap pool or just a middle pool.
Right.
The more people you have, the more pools you have to get, but it doesn't matter if you come in at 8 o'clock on Saturday night, it's after we're normally open. You have to have it, if you're trying to have your 5-year-old birthday party on Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock and we're already open, then no, you just.
We're just
rent
renting
the pavilion and-
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That was where the.
just the after.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sure, I was the only one making the decision there, boss, blaming me on that. I'm fine, it's.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it was
If your
rough.
facility could get damaged if you don't have some easily, and then everybody else suffers because they can't use it because one party got too wild, so I think it's totally necessary.
I was just amazed by the creativity. I was never a 25-year-old running the public pool. I don't. Fun time.
Creativity is a generous term.
Okay, yeah, right, that's fair.
No, creativity.
I don't think a single person got the water at that one. At one of those events, literally, it was just. Mingle hookup party than it was an actual swim party, so.
Glad I asked.
I didn't even give you most of it.
All right, any other water park design comments? Okay. Prop W, future public input.
So you have a spreadsheet here, in front of you, which is, you guys are the first folks seeing this so far. Let's see, and let me share. Because I didn't send this out ahead of time.
You can send it to me later if you want.
Can you see it now? Spreadsheet?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome. So. This is a starting timeline. This is by no means finished. One of the questions that we have for you all and the general public as we move forward in this is, what do you think about this timeline? Do you think there's things that need to be moved up, pushed back, rearranged? My thought process as I was putting this together, and Dr. Peoples and Mr. Peterson are meeting with me and helping to schedule this stuff out. Is there's a lot of big projects on here. Some of them are little projects that can just be knocked out pretty simply. Some of them in-house, some of them with just hiring a little contractor to come and do it. But there's, 5 or 6 really large projects along with the pool. And so my thought process is to have one of those in design, one of them in, the pool right now is in design. Once the pool goes into construction phase, then we'll kick off more design phases on the next big projects and have 1 or 2 more in design phase coming up. When the pool finishes construction end of next spring, right before summer, then we'll kick off new construction projects for the summertime and then into the fall. So there's always 1 or 2 things in the process of being designed, and 1 big project and a couple small projects in process of construction at the same time. That's my thoughts on it, but we'd love to hear your input on it. And I know it's the first time seeing this, but if you think there's things that are just out of sync and out of phase, try to put notes on there about some things have to happen after something else. Skate park can't be renovated until the pool's done, because we're gonna be storing new slides and stuff on the skate park until they can be put in full type of thing. So as soon as the pool's done, and start the skate park and start construction on that. So, but take a look and give me ideas and thoughts if you have them now.
I have a quick question. The new park construction at the last item in 2025, is that Deer Creek?
Yes,
Okay,
it's an old McDonald's property.
Yeah.
So it's in design phase right now. We're probably about the 60% design on that right now. And I'll jump ahead into my notes. There's actually gonna be a survey coming out next week, which I'll send to you all directly, but it'll also be out on all our social pages and in all of our Friday newsletters and such that go out, about naming of that park. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but we're putting out a public survey. GRG is actually leading it and putting it out, so that they can reach their folks, and then we'll share it all to all our residents and stuff too. It's kind of short. There's only 3 or 4-ish questions before you hit demographics at the back end, how old you are, where you live, that kind of stuff, what's your zip code. But it's fairly open-ended. It's, one of the questions is something effective. I think the park should be named blank because of blank. And so we're really looking for input. So I know we've talked about it a little bit before. I hope it's still percolating in the back of your minds, but even if you don't have an idea, try to get your friends and family and neighbors to throw some stuff out there. The only thing that it can't be GRG who owns the property and who's building it before they turn it over to the city. One of their rules is they don't name it after any people, alive or dead. So it can be historical, it can be location, it can be landscape based, it can be descriptive based or whatever, but we can't name it the Scott Davis Park. Which was sad, because I was now parking there.
That's what not that it works with our rules.
Yeah, our rules say you can name it after people, but I'd have to leave for 4 years first, so yeah, you're right. So, but yeah, be thinking about that. But yes, the new park,
Can you hold on, maybe?
yes,
I haven't seen the survey, because GRG's figured it out, as Scott just said, but, and also as he said, share it, but would really like you all's input, and we're trying to figure out that process. I have no idea how many people will participate in the survey, but if there's, 10 names that come back, do we bring them back to this group? Is what we're walking through today, bring them back to this group, and then have you all recommend your making up numbers, your top 3, and then they would go to city council for recommendations, some type of process like that, I think would be incredibly helpful. I think we'll get way more than 10 suggested names, and if you all, if this body wants to put forth names, I think that would be important as well.
I did get some feedback about, if it's a done deal, that the skate park will stay there and not be the Gate River the new park location?
So both, I think, well, both, I think, is the answer to that. So the new park has some skatable, rideable features in it, but it's not a full-blown skate park, is what we're looking at right now. So it's still gonna have greenway coming through it. The trail that's already there that goes along the creek and right now kind of dead ends right before you get to McDonald's, that will continue through the corner and then continue on into Maplewood. If you're standing on the street, then there'll be another loop that goes back towards the creek and over to Big Bend and then comes back up and joins that on Oxford Street to the shopping plaza. That loop, we're looking at building a bunch of skatable things and dual purpose things. So concrete bench, long bench kind of comes up and then runs flat for 20 feet or something. That you can also then, if someone's sitting on it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, great. At 3 o'clock when the kids go to school or whatever, someone can also skate it and grind those edges and such. So a couple of toe ledges and things. So, but yes, I think the main skate park will likely stay out here. So adding more, and kind of the goal is one of the trends in skating, North America wise, is I kind of call them spots and dots. So there's a lot of communities that are putting in dots, which is a real small, maybe like 1 or 2 features to hit as you're on your way to somewhere else. And then there's spots, which are like the Marshall Avenue trailhead that has the pump track. That would be more like a spot. It's a small destination to go to. And then you have your full blown skate park type of facility. So it's very popular. Canada's really going wild with it. Texas is kind of going wild with it. There's several communities in Texas that have built long greenways and they've built these spots and dots along the greenway. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm trying to steal their thunder because we do have the Marshall Avenue Trailhead with the pump track, and this will have, some spots, or this is probably more like a spot. And then, you've got a skate park here, and Maplewood's got a skate park. This greenway connects through Maplewood too, so kind of that type of trend. Things you can do while you're on the greenway, but maybe not a full-on destination that you're gonna drive and go park to and ride for 3 hours at, like a skate park would be.
Whatever happened with the way they raised the price?
Still there.
So kind of
Yep.
waiting.
Yep, so.
Weird, because I knew they got a good amount.
Yeah, I don't know what how much they ended up raising. They raised the initial was somewhere in the $8,000 range, and they actually turned that into the city, but then I think there was some additional funding that still came in after that, and I want to say it was more like 12-ish or so. So that money's still there to make improvements once we're ready to bang that out. That $12,000 makes a really nice feature. Yeah.
I missed the beginning of that. What was that comment?
The public raised money from the skate park, that Pete Vachon was spearheading about this time last spring, last summer. How much of that money had been raised and where is that money now?
Okay, and I have some feedback on that as well, in that the group that did raise that money was very interested in having a blown out skate park at the new McDonald area as opposed to where it currently is. Their preference would be to have it at the new location and not where it is now. They don't feel like they're welcome in that area, and that the residents don't immediately around that area don't want them there after dark. And the kids wouldn't be bothering anybody in that new location. So that's the feedback I've got.
Thank you. Scott, you said it's about 60% done. So opportunity for revision. I'm putting you on the spot.
Some revision. I think it might be tough to scrap the whole process and start over without, really impacting timelines and GRG's budget. To put that in. I'm not sure there's enough space for a full-blown skate park there. A lot of that park is, going to end up being, stormwater mitigation, BMP areas, to try to mitigate the stormwater, not just from that park, but as an offset for the entire greenway, which is being built, that phase of the greenway. As they're building all that through Maplewood and into the city of St. Louis, anytime you're touching more than an acre of land, you have to submit to MSD for stormwater control on that land. And it's really tough to do any kind of stormwater mitigation street side on a 12-foot wide greenway. So a lot of that stormwater mitigation is going to happen at that park, which is not a bad place for it, but it's also right next to the creek. So when the creek rises up, it's a good place to either overflow into or store that stormwater before it gets into the creek and causes more potential flooding situation. So with all that in there, I'm not sure that there's enough space to have a full-blown blowout skate park there.
Are there enough skaters to, I just know what the skating community is like, will they all go to one park over there, like, do they all skate together, or do we anticipate that both parks will be fully used?
I think, yeah,
Yeah,
I think the more the better, the more options you have, because you're hitting, different people that live locally to it. Obviously if you're a 12-year-old, you may not be able to go 6 miles away to hit whichever park, but you can hit the one
closest.
5 blocks away maybe. So yeah, I think more is better, having more features along. I like the idea of having more features along that greenway, that more people than just walkers or joggers or cyclists can use. There's something for inline skaters or skateboarders or BMXers, or I don't know what you call scooters. It's a thing. I just don't know what that thing is, but
Scooter thing.
scooter thing. So, yeah.
Is the city buying out property itself at the our side of Deer Creek Park? The flood properties, is that still going on?
There are two that.
So that will they be absorbed into the park footprint?
Oh, I understand,
So that's what I was asking.
gotcha. Yes and no.
Okay.
And so we're purchasing the two properties, it will be our green space, so
Okay.
yes. FEMA has very, very strict restrictions on what we can do with that green space. We did get permission to stripe it
Stripe it.
for
What do we mean by
soccer.
that?
That's
Oh,
about it,
okay,
that's the one use they have allowed.
okay.
Yeah, so you can't build anything on it, you can't do anything that.
I was just thinking, you were talking about spots, and I'm like, you're a little bit further up the greenway, you put in a little grind rail something, but okay.
We have posed,
Wow.
like, all kinds of ideas to see what they would allow us to use, even though it will be ours and we own it,
Right.
but they have several rules. So even with striping it for soccer, the goals have to be removable and,
Yeah, sure.
so, yeah. Now, I don't know what happens if we do something, I don't know who, what I find out.
I thought of just one thing,
I heard that, right?
I know, everybody's heard it.
Right.
like many people, I have recently gotten into pickleball.
Ah.
It's funny to me that everything on here talks about tennis courts. And when you drive past the tennis courts, unless you're there during the high school practices or tournaments or whatever, the majority of the people on there are playing pickleball. I think it's time to lean into that. And something as simple as the signage on the building that says tennis, to say tennis and pickleball, to something more involved, like, I don't know if we've ever looked into, we looked into an inflatable structure over the new swimming pool. But have we ever looked into an inflatable structure to make half of our tennis court, more of a year-round friendly facility. I think if you could fill that tennis court all winter, I don't know what kind of revenue it brings in dollar wise, but I would assume that's, you know, people using things are gonna, is what the idea of the parks are. That's what we're trying to do, is offer things that people in our community will use. It seems clear to me that pickleball is growing, more and more. Honestly, as a pickleball player, I'm having trouble figuring out exactly where to find a game here. Because I see the people using it, but there's no like official club that I can find that who they are,
Right.
you know, that are using it. It looks like more than just 4 guys going, hey, I'll meet you at the pickleball court today, and it happens to be 8 groups of those that there at any given time. It looks a little more organized than that. But I don't know. I know there's an indoor game or something I still can't, I'm not great at even finding that in the activity guide. I may be looking on the wrong pages.
Yeah. Pickleball is a little bit of the Wild West, and it changes monthly as far as who's using it, what. So yeah, there's, you know, we've got certain days at the outdoor courts that are drop-in play, so anybody can come and play. You don't have to rent the court or reserve the court. You can just either use your membership or pay the daily admission, and it's just rotating games. And then there are several groups that have either rented court spaces sometimes, or that, you know, if you have a tennis membership, you can reserve the courts a week ahead of time. And so there's a lot of folks that will reserve the court, and then they're 4-some or 8-some will come out and play.
But there is some sort of organized open play.
There is.
And when is that, and where is that information? As a resident, I haven't found it. And I'm currently playing at Veta because I wasn't aware of that option locally.
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you what day it is, but I can tell you here in just
Okay.
Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, all pickleball courts are open for open play from 6:30 to 9 PM. And so then Tuesday, Thursdays you can reserve it if you have a membership, or we occasionally rent them, but try not to rent them because there's so much usage of them already. So those are the evenings. The daytime is just drop and play. So
Okay.
daily memberships or membership.
I'm wondering if I'm just getting confused on the wording, that it just doesn't seem like. That when I read that, it just didn't seem like this is an organized open play. You don't need a team, you don't need people, just come. It says they're open for open play, but it kind of feels like, I don't know, that's just saying, you can come play if you want. Not, please come join us for our organized open play session,
Right.
you know what I mean?
I hear you, yep.
That's my impression.
Yeah, we put that in end of last summer because we had a few difficult groups that were trying to rent every court and reserve them, and then invite non-members to come in and use them. So that's why we ended up going to Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. You can't reserve the courts or rent the courts. They're just drop in play for everybody to show up. And pickleball is that very social game where you don't have to have a partner. You know, a lot of times you're trading out in winter stays, rotate around, all that. You probably know better than if you're playing all the time.
Yeah, well,
So it's wordage that I need to.
that's my impression, is I wasn't getting that impression that that's what it was there. And like I said, at Veta, this is organized open play, and they have facilitators during that time. They've got a little paddle rack where you put in your paddles, and once you get 4 in a grouping, those are the 4 that go play, and it's well organized. Matter of fact, I talked to the person that ran it today, and she said something about they will come to your facility like they do for some of the training that they offer here. But they said they do require somebody to man the attendance booth and take care of the money part of it. But otherwise, they would supply the facilitator for said agreement or arrangement of that. Again, that's another case where the technology, we were talking about ordering food on your phone. I think we can, if we really embrace the technologies that are out there, we can eliminate some of those costs with eliminate the need of the person sitting in the booth, waiting for somebody to come check in for tennis. And so forth. I know that that people will skirt the system if you don't have somebody sitting there guarding it, but
We have just done that within the last month, our new system is operational, and so. Because we had people that were propping the gate open and then nobody was paying specifically in the mornings, our system is now operational, so if the gate's locked and it's almost like a Ring doorbell, you hit the button and it rings a little display screen up here at the front desk. And then we can video chat with you up there, ask you your membership number and look you up in the system and buzz the door in for you. Or if you don't have a membership, then you can either give us your credit card right there and get in for the day, or you can walk down here and pay.
here's the QR code, you can
So,
Venmo us your money.
but we'll use that more in the spring and fall, actually starting now, we've got someone out there most of the time, come summertime. So there's someone in the tennis shed most of the time, but.
Hey, Mike, but you play, at Veta, you play indoor.
Yes,
Was indoor covering your point 4 or 8 of the courts so people could play tennis and pickleball year round? Was that ever considered as prop W? I mean, it's a lifetime sport, all age sport. And Veta and indoor tennis courts are very popular, been around a long time, where people can play year round.
I don't recall this.
Was that ever considered?
Well, I don't think it came up in the surveys as a desire. I'm fascinated. I mean,
Yeah, it's
but it wasn't
fascinating.
something.
A lot of people play tennis and pickleball.
because they're one of the best facilities in it's off Gravway Industrial, I forget, they call it Sunset, I think.
Sunset, yeah.
That's an inflatable structure, and a matter of fact, I was just told they're deflating it for the summer next week. Because in the summertime, those get just unbearably hot, it's like a little greenhouse, so
Sounds great.
just I didn't know how temporary those inflatable structures are.
Those inflatable
Costs on those.
Um,
I know nothing about it,
I have looked at, we started looking at solar 18 months, 2 years ago, and the first option was to put a canopy over the whole parking lot out here. And I was not for that at all. I said, if we're gonna put a canopy up, we should put it over the skate park or the tennis courts so that we can make those multi-use. I didn't see a great need to just park cars underneath it, if we could have it for a space where people can use it. So we have looked at that a little bit. That doesn't necessarily close it, but it covers it.
Sure.
So that it would be better, but, that's not imminently happening here. At this time, but, so, yes, we have looked at it in broad strokes.
But my main point was just, we keep talking about tennis, this tennis court repair here, tennis court repair there, tennis. And I think we're playing a lot of pickleball in the tennis courts lately, so
And I
maybe we'll
probably,
embrace it a little bit.
well, I probably can take tennis off and just leave those as court repairs, because
Yeah.
part of those repairs are that anytime we do any repairs, we add more pickleball courts onto anything that's not already striped for tennis courts. I will say that we've heard a lot of comments up here, and you kind of alluded to it, when the varsity tennis teams aren't there, front tennis courts aren't as used as much, and we've had people requesting them to be striped for pickleball. For some reason, pickleball and USA Tennis can't get their act together and make the courts the same size. So junior tennis and pickleball is about 2 inches apart. And so it's really difficult to have a tennis court and junior tennis lines for kids to play and kids to learn on, and pickleball lines together, because it's literally like line, and it's so busy, then you can't hardly even play.
The juniors will play half court kind of, okay.
Yeah, if you go up there and
Like
look,
larger,
there's,
okay.
there's the white lines for tennis, and then there's. It's green or blue, I can't remember which way it is, some color line also, so it's the same color lines that the pickleball lines are. On the front courts, they're striped as junior tennis. And pickleball's like just one size bigger, so they're, people say, I'm like, get together. It's 2 inches.
Everybody
Somebody give
compromise.
1 inch, and each of you get 1 inch and have the same court. So.
I
anything in his
Well,
interest?
I would agree with Mike before you guys finish on that topic, just in that I know I drop off kids at the middle school every day, just like Mike does. And I see way more pickleball players than tennis players. Every morning it is packed, no matter if it's 20 degrees or 70 degrees, people are out there playing pickleball. So I agree. I think we should do something for the community in that regard.
You take the time, I was there. So are there comments?
I just
from-
feel as I get.
No, it's great, we want the feedback, so Scott said you guys are the first ones seeing the timeline, the plan is to have it on the June 4th council agenda meeting. Because we need them to make decisions on bonding authority, and that's why you see the projects phased out in the different years, most likely. That first bond will be somewhere around the $17 million range, that could change just depending on projects and additional information. But that's part of why we need the timeline, and obviously we can't do all the projects at once, but really wanted your feedback on the timeline, if you see anything glaring.
So with your comments, Scott, about a process build, et cetera, I just tallied it up, there are 33 of these. And it looks like out of the 33, 9 are actually delivering new features. And 3 of those are just walking paths. So I was curious, are you taking, I guess, the new features, are you treating those different as opposed to your repairs and your roof and everything else?
Yes, you know, the things that we need, that we're really gonna be looking for feedback on are obviously the water park that we're doing now. Probably some of the native prairie and sustainability initiatives, that is a lot, some of that is converting medians and islands and right of ways around town into native prairie type of landscaping, non-mowable turf. So we don't have to go touch it every 10 days and mow it, such. So where some of that stuff will be and where some of those other sustainability initiatives that are outside of that might be. Skate park, what'll that look like? What type of features? Performance park is a really big one. And this, Ivory Crockett, sorry, jump back, I knew I missed something there. The Ivory Crockett, splash pad, you know, that's a brand new feature. So those like bigger ticket items, that's what we're really gonna be needing public input on and seeking. You know, changing out LED lights on the ball fields. That's just kind of a maintenance thing, you know, we hire the contractor to come in to do it. You know, we know we need 50-foot candles worth of light. And so I don't really need public input on those. There is one that's upgraded athletic field. That one would be something we'll want to get public input on. That one kind of goes with performance park, and then where the performance park goes. Do we need to replace a ball field that's somewhere else? Do we need it? And if not, then do we just improve and upgrade a ball field that's not currently, you know, lit or whatever?
And I guess some of where I was going with that question, since it looks like Performance Park is say for 2026 and is one of those new features. Was there any consideration of putting some of the items that were not voted on as much that were new features lower in the list, so that if we did want to put a roof on a facility to play pickleball year round or dog park or whatever the community really wanted, that the lower priority big new initiatives are further down the road?
That wasn't planned, it wasn't my goal, that's not why I listed it like this, but there's certainly, I think, opportunity there, you know, to discuss those other things. You know, as we went out for this vote, that was something that we talked about, that we know we want the indoor pool and these other things are likely or probable. But we don't know what that likely means. We don't know what performance park means, where it would be, how big it would be, does it cost 2 million, does it cost 400,000? If it costs 400,000, then you get an extra 2 million to do something else, somewhere else another project, so, yeah, I think there's.
DEP money left over with the performance park, that's the big unknown, just in terms of price. In terms of lower on the list, it's got me think differently, and that's fine, I wouldn't have said they were lower priority, it's just in terms of planning when we can get to know. We know the performance park is, in my mind, gonna take at least a year of public engagement to be able to get that feedback, so therefore it's just planned out further.
Got it, because I know at the kind of towards the end of our discussions on Prop W, we made it sound like this was very much the suggested list, not final list, with only the water park being final. And just trying to get a sense on, and are we able to sway, hey, let's maybe not do the LED at Memorial and instead look to something else, or are we thinking this list is 75% set and it's more just giving input on the details around these different projects?
I would go with the list as set, and giving the details on the projects, because this is the list that we,
Socialist.
yeah, I was starting to say campaign, but the public education that means, but we did campaign and share with voters that this is what would be provided, so I think council would have a hard time backing away and saying we're not going to do that. Again, with the exception of Performance Park, I think we're very upfront on that one being the outlier again, though.
I just have a question about the genesis of the performance park.
Sure.
Was there like a group of citizens who said that are really behind it, and would they be the ones then to sort of help with design ideas? I mean, where did it come from?
Sure, I think some of it is terminology, you know, we were trying to use, I guess I should say today's terms of Performance Park, but the amphitheater was
Amphitheater,
in the
yeah.
original master plan. So it's
Okay.
not a new concept, and you're more familiar with master plan.
Yes, when we did the 40 acres master plan with the school district and us and started before I got there, 2013, 2014. There was an amphitheater or a couple different options of amphitheater, in that master plan process. One of them was basically sitting on the, women's softball field, so it'd be projecting up onto the hillside for small performances and around up on the hillside for small performances or out into the field for large concert type events. And then another option was down on the skate park area, again, kind of up onto the hillside. So that's kind of the genesis of it, came from that master plan, which was the last master plan for this property. Actually, the only really master plan for this property in this century. So the only one that really counts. But then there was, you know, all these things were part of the surveys and every public input that we went out to residents and tell us what you like and what you don't like before we came up with this list of the final 25-ish items. So people voted for that, and that was something that I don't remember what the number was, where it ranked at, but it wasn't the last thing. It was middle of the road or higher ranking.
Top 10
Yeah.
of the public.
Do you guys just tear your hair out trying to figure out what constituents really want? Because I'm listening to this and where my head's going is, yeah. And because 2013, dog parks were kind of just on the upswing, pickleball was not really
Barely.
like worldwide yet.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, and then my question was, did the amphitheater idea come up as a way to mitigate some of the stress on the new stadium? Like, oh, we don't want to do like rock concerts at the stadium, it's a football stadium and an athletic stadium, so let's build an amphitheater. Like, I don't know what the genesis of it was, but I feel for you guys trying to figure it out, but I do feel like since 2013, 14, if that was the beginning of the amphitheater idea, I think a whole lot more people would be interested in some other things potentially than that.
Yeah,
Especially
there
with
is
the
a-
new stadium.
and there is a wide community, and so there's a whole bunch of different factions isn't the right word, 'cause that sounds negative, but different viewpoints on everything, you know, and so some folks in the arts community like it, some folks in the arts community don't like it, some people don't care about it one way or the other,
Mhm.
you know, so yeah, when you ask 24,000 people what their opinion is, you get 24,000 different options.
Some people think it should be indoor, some people think it should be outdoor,
Right.
there's a lot of options, obviously I over here was first.
Right, yeah.
Master plan, was done. It did rank incredibly high,
Okay.
and one of the things that I heard quite a bit is it's that sense of, we don't have a town square, so to speak. So it's a central gathering place, and whether it's central on the map or not, but it's, we've got Gazebo Park, we've got, Eaton Seminary's got some great green space, we've got places within the city, but we don't have that old school town square where people can gather, so it's some of the new terminology, and I'm learning all about this through the new comprehensive plan process, but those belonging spots, and where people can throw a blanket down, and we've got lots of parks, we don't have a shortage of parks, but even with that, there are often community parks. You may go to one park and not the other, so for me, that was a lot of the commentary and a lot of the feel around it. And when I say it's the big unknown, it's the big unknown just in terms of how large is it, what is the cost, what does it really look like? It's not an unknown whether or not the city, I think it could, things could always change, so, but I mean, it's one we said we would do and we will, but it's that gathering more input on it and why it is pushed out, because it changes daily from what people may like, and that's.
Right, yeah.
Brentwood, in their new park, I know they put in like some food truck parking
Yeah,
spots for
they
their, I don't really understand, I haven't been to the building yet. So
There's like 2 rooms that you can rent, like
Really?
2 separated rooms they're separated by like a breezeway. That kind of open onto the big lawn.
Yeah.
And then on the side, like 90 degrees out from the lawn is where the food truck parking is. And I'll say it's a very well planned food truck park, there's each food truck is separated, there's like a little power pole, so there's not lines running. And there's like a well managed, like a clear line for you to go stand in for each food truck.
yeah, I would assume that having something like that is gonna allow you to, a lot more Friday night concerts, and events like those sorts of things.
Yeah, and then they've got an amphitheater too, down the way by the lake, on the other side of the lake, there's actually a hillside. Small,
Yeah.
100 person.
And a wooden frame thing, like almost also overlooks
Yeah.
like if the event space.
That crazy place you can sit in the.
Right, when you
cargo
can sit in a
net.
cargo net and.
I'm not sitting there.
You have that.
I don't think it's weight rated, yeah, I don't think it's been weight tested.
Well, it's not supposed to be.
I said for adults.
Yeah, I went over and walked in, that one scared me, everything else looks really cool, that garden house.
Yeah.
So the idea that in addition to public gathering space, I mean, is the idea then the same kind of thing, more sort of an event space as well? A rentable event space?
Definitely a rentable event space, and so this is just me talking of all the projects that we've done, and as we talk about the indoor pool and costs and revenues, this is the only revenue generating project on here.
Small buildings.
So it gets me excited, what could we do with it, what are the possibilities?
But you've got to run the numbers on that, well, it's like the indoor pool, I mean, what's the outlook? Projection on.
So you're not wrong, but that's the tough part, what am I running numbers on?
I know.
What is this thing about it, so we've just gotta get further down the road, but yeah, we've gotta figure out what that means.
Well, the other question on that project and other ones, and I apologize, is that once you get into the design phase on any of these projects, is it conceivable, not likely, that people just don't like the end design and therefore you kill the project? See what I mean? In other words, you just get so far down and people just say, this isn't what I envisioned, we don't like it, I'm not voting for it, therefore the city kills the project. Is that conceivable?
I'm gonna say it's not conceivable,
Okay.
because I am going to trust Scott, this group, that we are going to do that public input that we said we were. So I hope we never get down the road and have just the majority say we don't wanna do
Yeah,
this.
well,
Absolutely, I can't see us getting to that point. Now, is everybody going to love it? Probably not, and I hope they'll learn to love it, if that makes sense. I think it's much like the pool. I could not be more thrilled with the commentary from people either watching the video or coming to the open house. Cause we were getting a lot of flack, you know, this is just replacement, it's ugly, why would you have our kids crash onto the concrete, you know, all of those types of things. But I think after people see it and get to experience a little bit more, and people will still want a longer, bigger lazy river and everything. So anyway, all that to say is I really, really hope that we would not do that.
Yeah, Tucker Park is fascinating because if you Google it, just look at images,
Yeah,
it's all over the map.
All over the
And I mean, it can be little, it can be big, I mean,
Wait.
Terrace.
yeah.
The.
outdoor park, yeah, the outdoor, you know, they're terrace seating or not terrace seating. I mean, there's so many ways to go. It's gonna be a fascinating project.
There are, and I have no idea what it should look like. It's all about right sizing it
Yeah.
for Webster. What does that mean?
And even the name was tough, like when we were trying to keep the name on the list, I kept saying amphitheater, because that's what I called them.
Yes.
But when you go look at an amphitheater, it's in a bowl, I mean, that's what the
Right.
amphitheater
Yeah.
means, so I was like, well, if I say that, then there's only one or two spots where that could actually be a possibility. And so we need to call it something else, because it could be a flat space area, what the hell do you call that? You know, so.
But you know, in the master plan you're talking about, it wasn't kind of an amphitheater because they had terrace seating all the way around Memorial Park on the hill. I mean, it's just, so there's different ways to skin it.
That water park owner rep, what's that
What is
one?
that?
So, oftentimes when you build a major project like this, I'm gonna tell you that I'm not always 100% qualified to watch everything that happens. And so an owner's rep is a building firm, an engineering firm, a contractor firm that will come in and be the city's eyes and ears to watch the contractors and make sure the contractors perform the work that they're supposed to do appropriately. So they help manage the submittal process of, you know, we're putting this tile in, we're putting that color slide in, all that stuff, all the way down to actually, you know, before they put the gravel over the top of the plumbing pipes, we take pictures of all the pipes and they inspect the pipes to make sure everything's done the way it's supposed to be done in the drawings.
So was that just not bundled with the $12 million and that really was a scope change after the budget was submitted? I guess I'm looking at the line above and saying, okay, we're coming $1 million under for the water park, but now we've got this additional line item.
So the contract for the water park that we signed was $11 million. From the get-go, we have said 12 million for the water park, because we're holding $1 million contingency, so that's, yes, that dollar amount right now is coming out of that $1 million contingency to help make sure that it's built right and that we don't miss something, which then causes a lot of it's on the front end. If you get the work done right now, then you don't have change orders on the back end, which cause that contingency to blow up. So it's
Common
worth,
to have
yeah.
an shrub.
worth 7 times that money.
Oh, but I'm not questioning the owner's rep, it's just more why it's a separate line item versus just with.
What is the difference between the restroom remodels? Why is Ivory Crockett so much more expensive? What do we do there?
So Ivory Crockett is the only major park that we have, actually, I take it back, it's the only park that we have restrooms in, which we only have restrooms in the 4 major parks, big ones, but it's the only one that doesn't have, it's not enclosed to have heated restrooms.
Okay.
So that, and it's an older structure than the other parks. So that one will remove that entire building, and we're looking at a prefab restroom facility we brought in, designed, brought in. And also that building will need to store all the equipment, pumps and filters and stuff for the water park. So it's a pretty hefty dollar.
Okay.
The other ones are getting, you know, automatic flush valves, and Blackburn Park's closed right now. We're doing some jacking the floor back up to stabilize some of the floors in there right now. So, you know, some work like that, some of the concrete needs to be repaired, some of the roofs need some repair, but they're not complete tear outs and rebuilds. That's why Ivory Crockett's 400 something thousand, 275 for the rent.
Did we just spend some money at Ivory Crockett in the last few years? Looks like maybe we've done some improvements over there in the last 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. We installed a new pavilion there and put in some new playground features last year. We put in the walking path, or greatly improved the walking path that was there all the way around the ball field. So that's a 1/4 mile track, not a track, pathway now. So yeah, it's gotten
Yeah.
150, 175, some odd $1,000 worth of improvements over the last several years.
Yeah, the basketball courts were all repainted.
Thank you. The courts were resurfaced.
Yeah,
Looks nice.
I just feel like they've got a lot lately and just wanted to point that out. It looks great.
There were purposeful investments in Ivory Crockett Park, and you're right, it is a lot over the last couple of years. If you look historically, those investments have not been made in Ivory Crockett Park.
For the ADA playground features that note Larson total renovation in Muni Park 525, can you expand on that a little?
Yeah, so those ADA playground features are another thing that we're really seeking public input around, whether that looks like more features, another 1 or 2 features on all the playgrounds, or whether that looks like a total inclusive playground at one park, or a combination of both those. So we have the option to get the municipal park grants pretty much every other year for $525,000 is our limit. And that's a sales tax based grant that all the St. Louis County municipalities, if you shop anywhere in St. Louis County, part of your sales tax goes into this grant. 1/3 of the money goes to the Arch grounds downtown, that when that was rebuilt. 1/3 of it goes to St. Louis County to do their parks, and then 1/3 of it is held for all the individual municipalities through a grant process that we apply for. So I'm thinking that we'll have a grant round available then, that we could, the 400,000 that we kind of earmarked for playground features, if we added that muni park $500,000 to it, then you could do a destination, fully inclusive playground. Those typically run about $1 million. Larson would be the next big park that we would need to do a playground on. We just did Blackburn's playground, so that's a potential if we're gonna do a fully inclusive playground to that would be a good spot for it, potentially. But that's something we definitely want more public input on as we move through this process too.
Quick question about the playground that's adjacent to the tennis court in Memorial. I haven't laid eyes on it, but I had someone just say to me today, why is it not done? It's just, is it not gonna be rebuilt?
So it was past its age of being able to be repaired. It was unsafe. We tried several different options to repair it, and we couldn't buy parts for it anymore. And so we took it down. Originally it was gonna be replaced before Prop W stuff became a thing. We were looking to replace it where it was as it is. Since Prop W's happened and happening, the potential for other things to go out there, maybe that's a spot where the Performance Park Pavilion structure lives. And so we're kind of placeholding that right now. I don't want to put $75,000 playground in there and then rip it out 2 years from now if that's where the performance park ends up living.
This parent's point to me was that if parents with younger children wanna play tennis, it's the place to go. I mean, because their kids can play and they can actually play tennis. And so that made a lot of sense to me, so.
What's that, Tracy? Where?
The playground just adjacent to the tennis courts right here, so, yeah.
And it could be that you could have both of those, so there could be
Yeah.
space for a performance park pavilion type structure and also a playground up there as well, but I'm hesitant to do to spend $75,000 of your money to put something in, it's gonna have to be torn out. in 2 or 3
Is there, I haven't laid eyes on I'm not a tennis player, but like, I know like at Blackburn, there's not a playground right by the tennis courts. Is Ivy Crockett right there? Like, do they have a playground?
Yes, yeah, playground right next to the courts at Crockett. Barnacle Park has a playground right next to those courts.
Oh, right, okay. I
But-
can at least hear that,
Neither of those courts are as nice as
these,
the $1 million courts that we just built.
well, and they
you know,
built
3
two
years
blocks
ago.
from here, so that's funny. But anyway, just. Other comments.
So there are some empty spaces in 2028, so there's possibility of maybe putting Blackburn play equipment there. At the very end, with all this all said and done, we've got a performance park where it goes, and we still think we need play structure here at our main 40-acre facility where people play soccer and baseball all year round with little kids.
There's some money left.
Yeah,
Money left there or more beauty park grants, again, you know, we can get those, that's a significant dollar amount to get every other year at $500,000. Or just other park improvement funds that we may have, you
Yeah.
know.
my point is just that it seems like a big void here in this particular park. And I totally understand why we didn't replace it in kind, and are putting it off, but I'd love to see it and not forget about it when we get all these things knocked off.
I agree, if you're coming up to play ball and, you know, your brother's playing and little sister's not, it'd be great to have a playground for little sister to go play on.
Yeah.
Parents playing tennis and kiddos playing on. Holy, I get it. It's just phasing it in the right place and the right time.
Yeah.
And this park's pretty full, makes a lot of stuff happen here, so finding the right spot for it is.
Right smack in the middle of the washout area.
I thought Eric may have mentioned when he talked to us the last time that these funds could be temporarily parked in some type of investment account until it's not used on.
So guess what? No.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
That was our understanding and that was what we had been counseled and turns out that that's not correct. So we can take money out and we can put it in savings. But we're not allowed to keep any earned interest above what it costs us to pay the interest on the bond. So if we sell the bond at 3%, we can make 3% and keep that. If we make 5%, lo and behold, the federal government wants their 2% cut back because it's tax exempt bonds. So yeah, you can't actually make any money on taking out the full 22 million and just sitting it in the bank. In fact, you only have 3 years from the day you sell the bonds and receive the money, you have to expend the money within 3 years, which is why we'll likely only sell somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 million this summer. And then that way we can get that work done and not have to give that money back. And then as the next rounds of projects come up in future years, we'll be able to sell those other $5 million for the remaining projects.
But we'll be subject to the interest rate environment at the time when we sell those bonds. Because part of that conversation with Eric at the time was that we were in good headwinds for selling these bonds and then profiting on the interest differential at the time. Like we were selling into a positive interest rate environment. And we run the risk 2 summers from now that the interest rate environment may not be positive as in, you know, from the municipal side.
I think that's true. As it stands now, well, we won't be earning interest, which is a bummer. We also won't be incurring interest, so, but I don't know where that will be in a couple of years. We're in a really good space, though.
It's definitely a bummer to hear that though, because I was hoping to build extra projects on.
I'm not gonna lie, a lot of conversations that I had, like, you know, with people were about like, this is a good time, there's this differential, here's this thing, here's why it makes sense to do it now, we can park the money, so it is a little jarring to hear that was not a correct understanding.
Agreed, that was very disappointing. Good news, not dealing with these funds, but part of the future city is doing very well. Our budget has turned around. We have a bit of a surplus, but a lot of that is due to investments. We've had a really good turnaround on some of the investments.
And one more quick, real quick.
About what?
Well, the city had the big safe streets thing, grants coming in. It's all about safe streets for cars, bicyclists and pedestrians. But it got me thinking about safe parks, and I'm just curious, are our parks safe? I mean, are they, forget all the amenities and all the attractions, but are they fundamentally safe, like safe streets? For kids, families to come and visit?
I would say yes, and the design of most of them have been thoughtful design, and many of them happened way before I came.
Yeah.
But also just on the sheer accidents that are reported, it's a very low number. You know, give me some wood to knock on somewhere. We just haven't had any, there's not broken legs, there's not broken arms falling off of playgrounds, there's not, excessive trip and falls. There's always some trip and falls here and there. But we don't have super risky things. We don't have any cargo nets that hang up 40 feet in the air.
Zip lines.
Yeah, zip lines. Zip lines.
Zip line in Rowan Park. Is
Yeah. So the things that we have are as safe as that activity, that sport can be. There's always inherent risk. Yeah, quite frankly, we have probably the most injuries on the ice rink because it's a slippery spot, and people, even good skaters, still fall. And if you don't fall right, you break a wrist, you split your noggin open a little bit, need some stitches and such. But I think they're safe. I think all of them are safe. They're fairly well lit. It doesn't seem to be bad elements doing bad things in most of the parks. Now, again, I was a teenage boy, and there's plenty of teenage boys running around doing things that aren't always the greatest thing, but even that has been not significant over the last 2 or 3 years. We had quite a.
No, that's good to hear. Thank you, Scott. I just was curious.
All right, anything else on front building? All right, it looks like council person Alexander's not here. Scott, did you have anything else?
I have some short comments because it's almost 9. You all probably want to go home. GRD survey where it talked about pool opens this weekend. So we hope to see you and your families out soon here at the pool. Yeah, wow.
The water really cold.
We are all, I have not been in it, I'm sure it is. We are almost ready to open. Friday night we open up. We met with the lifeguards today. We've got a good lifeguard group coming back this year. So we're full of lifeguards. There are still pools that are not full.
Knock on wood.
That's such a Shrewsbury
So I'm excited about the season. It is our last season. Everything right now is up and running except for the hot water. The hot water tank didn't kick on this week, so that's getting fixed tomorrow. So you have a hot shower, hopefully by tomorrow afternoon. Community Days Parade application is done, out online. Community Days is coming up soon. Fireworks will be on the parade and on the 4th at 10 o'clock, fireworks at 9:15 here at this field. This facility and the pool were both closed on the 4th due to the fireworks setup. You can't have anybody inside a facility inside a certain radius, blast radius, even a better one, yes. And then the comp plan, we were talking about having this group. So the city's doing the comprehensive plan right now, and we would like to get a meeting with the consultants and the Parks and Rec Commission to give updates and opinions on Parks and Rec things and the city in general through that comp plan. So I will forward information out to you soon to try to get a date for that.
We did the council's meeting, it's the Lakota group or the consultants, they've done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, they were really good.
They've really done well. They were on site for like 3 days. We did 13 in-person listening sessions. Hopefully some of you all managed to be in one of those, but it's been really good. But Quimby, we did the councils last week and we did it virtually. I share that if it's, obviously, if you don't want to sit here till 9 PM, if you guys prefer a different time, it can be during the day, you can log in for an hour, we can figure that out.
That's all I have, unless you have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Can I also just add that the second annual community dog walk, this is Saturday morning, May 25th. Gather at 7:45 at the old gazebo, Old Orchard Gazebo Park. Then we're gonna take a long walk, go into the Eden Green Space, do some dog agility stuff. Come back to the park and there's free Starbucks coffee, any size, any variety, and free pup cups for your dog. So it's really fun, less than an hour and a half. Come out if you wanna walk your dog.
All right, I know you had it listed here, July 24th next meeting. Is there gonna be enough opportunities for feedback on Prop W that may make us wanna meet again a little earlier in June, or is July still the best time?
That's a great question. If we wanted to go June, we could schedule a date now, and if we have enough stuff, we can certainly meet, and if we don't, then we can push it till the July one. This is your guys' commission, so I will leave that as you guys answer that question.
I guess one negative, I think that is the third Wednesday is Juneteenth, and that is a holiday, I know I've got.
It'll be the fourth Wednesday is our normal meeting, so it'll be 26th.
Oh, it's the fourth, not
Yeah.
the third, okay, never mind. 26th.
Yeah,
June.
Yeah.
Scott, is it doable for you right before the fourth?
Yes.
That's a very.
Perfect.
Yes.
But again,
Yes.
if there's nothing to
Yes.
go over, I love the idea of being able to just say, look, we talked about this last month, I don't have any new information.
Perfect.
Speaking of Juneteenth, the city's having its third Juneteenth celebration. It will be on June 20th, so not on actual Juneteenth because it is a holiday. June 20th, Ivory Crockett Park. It'll be in the evening, 6.
7:30, something like that, yep.
Yeah, last year, our second year, it gets better each year, but it was a lot of fun. So this year will be even better.
Cool. All right, then I'll make a motion to have the next meeting on June 26th unless there are no topics.
I second.
All in favor?
I
All opposed? All right, 26 it is, then I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Wait, just a minute, whenever buildings that are torn down, a lot of times people will take mementos like a brick. Would we, like with the Aquatic Center, which has been there 30 years, I mean, it's like this institution, but it's gonna be torn down, can people take pieces of it home? See what I mean? I mean, it would be kind of cool.
I thought that.
Actually,
Will you sell cases?
Actually, I am planning on a lot of the equipment that's out there, the city, when we have surplus items, when we buy a new truck, we auction off old trucks and stuff. So there is a lot of things that will be going into an auction, from, you know, a 4-pack of chairs all the way up to, we just replaced, well, we rebuilt a few of the motors and pumps for the attractions that were gonna last through this year. So those are virtually brand new pumps and motors now, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a piece. There's no reason to landfill those, so we will be auctioning that kind of stuff. So yes, we may take a look at figuring out some of that other stuff that could be, if you really want it, Or is it gonna be like me when I bought everything at a Bush Stadium and now I've got a piece of their dugout floor that's this big, what am I gonna do with that? But I bought it, I gave Cardinals $40 for it, so.
No, but like a lifeguard stand, I think people could buy a lifeguard stand, take it home, for the backyard.
So that kind of stuff definitely will be part of the auction and I can
Yeah.
certainly publicize, and that auction,
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
oftentimes, some of the stuff goes really cheap, this trucks go gangbusters, they're really, they're like.
Yeah, that's-
I don't know why people pay as much as they will for the vehicles, but.
All right, to make it official, motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Benny.
We had that eraser out.
Nothing, let's say, these folks are doing.
Night, everybody.
Oh,
Yes, yes.
That's what I thought, what I was. Thanks, Dan, see you later.
See you later.
Good night.
Don't forget baseball games.
I should have probably made.
Yeah.
I was.
You.
Yeah.